My name's Colin, and there's something I need to get off my chest before it eats the last sane piece of me. I found a drawer with no dust. That might sound ridiculous to you, but you have to understand, I'm a man who notices patterns. I install home security systems for a living. I notice if a door's off by half a hinge or if a motion sensor hasn't pinged in 36 hours. It's my job to detect what shouldn't be. But I missed the biggest alarm of all, my wife. Her name is Lacey. Been married 8 years, together 11. We don't have kids. Not because we didn't try. We did, for years. But things didn't work out. Somewhere along the way, I stopped bringing it up, and she stopped pretending she cared. Our home? It's fine. 3 bedrooms, small porch, nothing fancy. Her favorite place is the converted attic she calls her studio. Except I've never seen a single painting come out of it. Not one. That attic door is always locked. She said it's her sanctuary. You have your garage, Colin, she told me once. Let me have this. I didn't argue. I've never been the kind of guy to push. I take people at their word, especially the woman I promised my life to. But that drawer. 2 weeks ago, Lacey left for a 3-day wellness retreat with some of her old college friends. The house was quiet. Too quiet. So I decided to finally do the thing I always said I would, clean her cluttered bookshelves. The ones she always said she'd get around to organizing. That's when I saw it. A drawer in the base of her bookshelf, one I never knew was there. But the dust on the wood around it? Thick. Coated. Like a decade of neglect. But the drawer itself? No dust. Not a speck. Like someone had opened it that morning. And what I found inside. Not what you'd expect. No affair photos. No receipts. No love letters. Instead, there were 6 envelopes. Each sealed. Each marked with a different man's name. None of them mine. Each one had the same date written in small ink on the flap. Same date. Same year. 5 years ago. I didn't open them. Not then. I just sat there, holding them, feeling my throat tighten, my fingers go numb. My heart wasn't racing, it was measuring, trying to decide whether I wanted the truth or the comfort of ignorance. That night, I drank 2 beers alone on the back porch. No TV, no music, just me, the envelopes, and the feeling that my marriage had been operating on a script I'd never been handed. When she came home 2 days later, glowing like someone who had found peace, I couldn't look at her the same. I asked her casually what she did on the trip. She smiled. Spa day, yoga, deep talks. Nothing wild. I looked at her and said, "Do you know a man named Aiden Mercer?" Her smile froze for a split second. A flicker. Not even a full second. But I caught it. That night, I waited until she fell asleep and opened the envelope with Aiden's name. Inside was a single photo, a handwritten note, a key, and one sentence burned into my memory. There's a place I never let him near. But somehow, you're different. I don't know who she was writing to. I don't know what the key opens. But I know this. I'm done being the quiet one. And next week, when she's at her book club, I'm going into the attic. Because the drawer with no dust wasn't the secret. It was the invitation. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of the guest room, my back against the bed frame, the envelope and its contents spread out like evidence from a case I didn't know I was part of. The photo inside was old, printed on thick matte paper, like it came from one of those instant printers you find in vintage shops. In the picture, my wife was younger, maybe late 20s. She stood in front of a wooden door painted red, wearing a light jacket I've never seen before. She wasn't smiling, but her expression wasn't neutral either. There was something resolved about it, like she was committing something to memory. Next to her in the photo was a man. Tall, dark hair, hands in his coat pockets. His face was turned just slightly away, but you could still see the edge of a smirk. That told me everything. She knew him well enough to feel comfortable being photographed beside him like that. Comfortable enough to write him a note. And that's what gnawed at me. The note read, "You said you wanted to see the inside, but I've never let anyone in, not even him. That room means something. I hope someday you understand why I said no." There was no name signed. Just the handwriting unmistakably Lacey's. Loopy LS, slanted TS, and the way she dotted her eyes with tiny, stubborn circles. I knew that writing better than my own. And then there was the key. Brass, cold, worn smooth on one side. No label. Just a strange little heart-shaped notch on its tip that didn't look like any house key I'd ever seen. By morning, I tried the key on every lock in the house. Front door. Back door. Garage cabinet. My lock toolbox. Even the small garden shed that hadn't been opened since 2019. Nothing. The key didn't fit anywhere, but I didn't expect it to. Because the attic, her studio, had no keyhole. It had a keypad. But that day, for the first time, I noticed something odd. The keypad glitched. When I passed by the door around noon, I heard it beep twice. Not the usual locked-out sound, not the normal chime I was used to. This was different. Almost like it recognized something nearby. Like it was searching. I leaned closer. Just as I did, the screen on the keypad flashed once and then went black. A second later, it returned to its regular red display, locked. That's when I started to suspect the key wasn't meant for a lock. It was meant for her. That night, I asked her again. Not directly, just enough to stir the surface. You ever think about repainting the attic door? I asked. She paused, plate in hand. Why? Just feels cold up there. Maybe something warmer. Sage green, maybe. She didn't laugh, didn't smile. She just said, the color isn't the problem, Colin. It's the memory inside. That sentence stuck to my ribs. I went back to the envelope. Googled Aidan Mercer. The search came up dry, until I added a location filter and stumbled onto a decade-old article about a local artist collective that used to run out of a now-defunct firehouse downtown. There was a blurry group photo. Lacey was there, and so was the man from the photograph. His full name was listed in the caption, Aidan Mercer, creative director. I clicked on his name. No recent activity, no website, but his LinkedIn listed him as retired from public creative work since 2018. 2018. The same year as the date on the envelope. I couldn't stop shaking. Not from anger. From the realization that there was an entire season of my wife's life I had never been let into. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. A room in her history as sealed off as the attic above our heads. The worst part? I didn't even know what I was supposed to feel. Rage? Betrayal? Fear? No. What I felt was shame. Shame that I let this go unnoticed for years because I didn't want to seem paranoid or insecure. I let her keep a whole section of her life in a box I wasn't allowed to open, and convinced myself that was normal. Well, it's not. So the next night, while she was brushing her teeth, I stood outside the attic again. I placed the key gently against the side of the keypad. It beeped. The screen flickered. Then it said something new. Voice recognition, ready. What kind of studio needs voice recognition? That's when I realized. She's not hiding a place. She's hiding a person. And whoever he is, he still has a voice the door might open for. The phrase on the screen, voice recognition, ready, was like something out of a bad spy movie. But I knew what I saw. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't dreaming. The keypad on the attic door had switched to some kind of secondary mode, and it had done so the moment I touched that damn key to its frame. I stood frozen for a solid minute, just staring at it. Then, in the quietest voice I could muster, I said her name. Lacey. The screen blinked. I heard a mechanical hum behind the wall. And then, just as fast, the screen went red again. Voice print, unknown. Access denied. What the hell kind of personal studio needs biometric access? I install high-end locks for a living, and this wasn't some off-the-shelf system you grab off Amazon. This was something someone built or paid good money to have customized. And it wasn't meant to keep out strangers. It was designed to keep out me. I didn't try again. I wasn't ready. Emotionally or mentally. Something about that denial felt personal. Like the system had recognized me just enough to reject me. I didn't tell her. Of course not. Instead, I started looking closer at everything she did. Not in a paranoid way, more like a forensic observer. Her schedule, her energy levels. The way she touched her phone just a little too fast when I walked into a room. The way she started wearing perfume again, but only on Wednesdays and Fridays. One night, I asked if I could help clean up the attic for spring. Her smile was gentle, almost pitying. That's my space, Colin. I know you're curious, but I need that part of myself untouched. There it was again. That language. Untouched. Not for you. Like she was talking to someone with dirty hands. I nodded. Said nothing. But inside, I was done playing the understanding husband. I'd given her years of room. She never gave me access. Not once. So I did something I promised myself I'd never do. I called her mother. Now, for context, Lacey and her mom aren't exactly close. But I'd always gotten along with her. She's blunt, religious, old school. She never really liked the art scene Lacey drifted into after college. Said it brought disorder into her life. When I asked if Lacey had ever lived with someone named Aidan Mercer, there was a long silence on the other end. Then her mom said, I thought she told you. Told me what? That they were engaged. It was like someone knocked the wind out of my chest. I felt it physically. I didn't know that, I muttered. Her mother exhaled. That man broke her in ways I don't think she ever repaired. It wasn't just infidelity. It was control. Secrets. I think she built walls because of him. Do you know what happened between them? She doesn't talk about it. But I know one thing. She left in the middle of the night. Just packed a suitcase, left a note, and vanished. And the only thing she took with her was a hard drive. I blinked. A hard drive. That's what she told me. She said it had something she couldn't let him erase. I thanked her and hung up. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that attic. What kind of hard drive needs to be locked behind biometric security? What kind of ex-fiancé inspires that level of secrecy? And more importantly, how long had I been living next to a version of my wife I didn't even know existed? So I went back to the keypad. This time, I didn't speak. I just held up my phone and played the only recording I could find of her voice, an old voicemail she left me after an argument 2 years ago. In it, she said my name, said she loved me, said she was sorry. The keypad beeped, then flickered. Voice print, matched. Access granted. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. And the first thing I saw, before the smell of old paper and linseed oil hit me, was a large canvas mounted on an easel. And on it, she had painted his face. Not Aiden as a man, not a portrait, but his face distorted, screaming, on fire. And the caption in red paint beneath it? Some places you can't come back from. That was the moment I realized. I had opened a door not meant for the living. I don't know how long I stood there in the doorway. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time didn't work normally in that room. The attic was nothing like I imagined. There were no brushes, no half-finished still lives, no paint-streaked smocks or rolls of canvas leaning against the wall. Instead, the room was arranged like an installation piece, part museum, part mausoleum. Her entire past had been curated into a silent, suffocating display. On the wall across from me hung 5 framed photos, all printed in black and white, all slightly off-center, like they'd been cropped to remove someone or something. In one, Lacey was standing on a rooftop. In another, she was mid-laugh at what looked like a backyard barbecue. The third showed her standing beside a bonfire, the flames eerily similar to the ones she painted beneath Aiden's screaming face. But none of them had Aiden in them. Only one thing connected the photos. In every single one, she was holding a camera. The same one, vintage and heavy-looking, with a wide leather strap. And in every one of them, her fingers were poised over the shutter like she was capturing something else, something behind the lens, something I couldn't see. There was a desk under the window, covered in paper. Not sketches, letters. Dozens of them. Some typed, some handwritten. They weren't addressed to anyone. They were dated, organized by month, and signed only with her initials. I picked up the one on top. May 2nd. I saw him again today. Not in real life. Never that. But in the place my memory built for him. And every time, he says the same thing before the dream ends. You'll show someone else, won't you? I don't answer. I never do. Because part of me wants to. And part of me is afraid I already have. I put the paper down. That's when I realized there was something under the floorboards. A soft hum, not mechanical, more like a low ambient vibration, like static behind a wall. The boards beneath the easel were thicker, newer. Someone had replaced them. Poorly. I got on my knees and tapped along the edges. One panel gave slightly under my hand. I pressed harder. It clicked, and the board popped loose. Beneath it, inside a velvet-lined hollow, was a black box. No latch. No hinges. Just a sleek, seamless surface with a fingerprint pad on top and a digital port on the side. I didn't recognize the make or model, but it wasn't cheap. It looked like something you'd see in a government evidence locker. And next to it was a small handwritten note. Just one line. If you're reading this, you already know too much. I should have stopped, closed the attic, gone back downstairs, pretended I never saw anything. But that's not who I am anymore. I can't go back to being the husband who smiles through the silence and believes that boundaries are sacred just because someone says they are. So I took the black box downstairs, plugged it into my work laptop. It didn't boot normally. Instead, it launched a text prompt. Enter password. I tried our anniversary. Her birthday. The name of our old cat. Nothing worked. Then I remembered the key, the brass one with the heart-shaped notch. It had a number engraved so faintly I hadn't noticed before. 7-4-9-3. I typed it in. The screen went black for 3 seconds. Then a folder opened. It was titled, The Ones I Let In. Inside were 8 video files. I clicked the first one. It was a recording of Lacey sitting in that attic, hair tied up, eyes sunken, speaking to the camera like it was a confessional. He said I needed to document this. That if I ever wanted to be free, I had to confront what I allowed. So this is me confronting it. I let Aiden in. Fully. And he didn't break me. I broke myself for him. She took a breath, steady but jagged. But there's something worse than infidelity. Something people never talk about. Emotional exposure. Giving someone access to your deepest self, the version of you that only exists when no one's watching, and realizing they memorized it just to weaponize it later. The screen glitched briefly. Her face cut to black, then came back. The color was off, she looked paler, grainier, like her image had decayed even within the video. So when I built this room, I told myself I'd never let anyone like him in again. Not fully. Not past the threshold. Not into the drawer without dust. The file ended. I clicked the second video, but it didn't open. It said, access limited, voice authentication required. And I realized, slowly, sickeningly, she wasn't just hiding this from me. She had designed this entire system so only one man could finish watching her story. The man she might still be talking to. Because when I checked the file's metadata, it showed the second video had been accessed just 5 days ago, while she was supposed to be on her wellness retreat. And the timestamp? It was at 3:17 a.m., which means someone else had been in our house. Someone with the voice the system recognized. I stared at the timestamp for what felt like a lifetime. 3:17 a.m. 5 days ago. While I lay in bed alone, half believing she was at a cabin with yoga mats and herbal teas, someone had entered our house, our bedroom, climbed the creaking attic steps, and accessed something I wasn't supposed to even know existed. That realization didn't spark rage. Not at first. What I felt instead was displacement. Like I'd come home only to find my name missing from the mailbox. Like I'd stepped into someone else's marriage and realized, horrifyingly, that I didn't belong. I replayed the first video, not to listen to her voice, but to watch the background. And there, behind her right shoulder, was a coat rack I'd never seen before. Hanging from it was a dark navy hoodie. I paused the frame, zoomed in. On the sleeve, a faded logo. Iron Rooster Collective. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew where to start looking. Lacey had mentioned a gallery opening once, years ago, somewhere near Richmond. I dug through our emails and found it, a calendar invite from 2016. She RSVP'd to an event hosted by something called Iron Rooster, hosted inside an abandoned mill-turned-art space. I Googled the name. Dead end. But I found a Reddit post. 5 years old. A thread titled, Where Did Iron Rooster Disappear To? The top comment chilled me. They shut it down overnight. No warning. Whole crew went dark. Rumors were someone exposed something on camera they weren't supposed to. The reply below said, Aiden Mercer, right? That guy was off his rocker. Some performance piece that went too far. I searched his name again. Still nothing current. But one old blog came up, a cached archive from a writer who reviewed underground art installations. She had written about Aiden in 2018. Aiden's last piece was called Threshold. Guests had to enter alone. No phones. No noise. No second chances. What happened inside was unspeakable. But the effect? It made people cry. Scream. A few walked out silent and never came back. The post ended with a single line in italics. They said he filmed every one of them. And only one person ever got to see the full cut. My chest tightened. The box in the attic. The security system. The voice access. The locked files. This wasn't about some affair. It wasn't just another secret. It was a project. A ritual. A relationship that never ended, just shifted into a different kind of space. And the worst part? My wife invited it. She built it into our home. Not just physically, but emotionally. She buried a version of herself in that attic and carved out a life with me that never got to touch that part of her. Until now. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed at the desk, going through everything in the folder. I found something odd, a system log. The black box had a tracking feature. Every time someone accessed a file, it recorded not just the timestamp, but the location of the voice print. It had pinged a second source 5 days ago, but the coordinates didn't match our home. They matched a storage unit 10 miles away, registered under her maiden name. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, the next morning, I told her I needed to visit my brother for the day. She barely looked up from her phone. Just nodded. Okay, babe. Be safe. 2 hours later, I was standing outside a rusted gate, staring at unit number 22. The keypad took a 4-digit pin. I tried the number from the key again, 7493. The light turned green. Inside was no furniture, no boxes, no clutter. Just one item. A single chair. And a projector, already set up, already humming, facing a blank wall. No remote. No controls. Only a piece of tape on the projector's top. On it, handwritten in sharp black marker. You wanted to see what he saw. I hesitated for a long time. Then I plugged in the black box. The projector clicked and began to play. What I saw next is something I'll never fully explain. Not to you. Not to myself. Not even if I lived 1,000 years. But it started with a screen full of faces. And one by one, I watched them fall apart. The room was cold, colder than it should have been for a storage unit. But it wasn't the temperature that made me shiver, it was the silence, thick and waiting, like the space had been holding its breath for years just to exhale when I stepped inside. The projector flickered. A grainy black and white video started. At first, nothing. Just a bare room similar to the one I stood in. Same scuffed cement floor. Same metal walls. The only difference was the chair. In the video, it was occupied. A young woman sat in it. Could have been 22, 23. Nervous. Glancing at the camera every few seconds. Her breathing was loud. Too loud. Like the mic had been placed inside her throat. Then a voice spoke. Not Lacey's. Not Aiden's, I don't think. It was distorted, like it had been run through layers of static. Tell me where it hurts. The woman looked confused. What? Tell me where it hurts when no one's watching. Her face crumbled. Slowly. Like someone had removed the outer mask she was holding together just for the camera. She began talking. Not in sentences. Not even in full thoughts. Just pieces. Fragments. Her father. A miscarriage. A name she couldn't say. She cried until the screen glitched and cut out. Another face appeared. Then another. Then another. All of them different. All of them broken. All of them answering the same question. And then 15 minutes in a face I knew. Lacey. But not the Lacey I'd married. Younger. Barefaced. Sitting still in that same chair. She wasn't crying. She was staring into the camera with hatred. I let you in, she whispered. You said you wanted honesty. But you used it like a crowbar. You wanted pieces of me you could sell to people who never deserved to hear them. There was no voice asking questions this time. She took control. I'm not your subject. I'm not your canvas. And I'm not going to be your unfinished work. The screen went black. Then her voice, off camera. If I don't come back after this, Colin will never know. But if he ever does. I'm sorry. The projector stopped. The room fell back into silence. I stood there, heart pounding, frozen between two versions of the same woman. The one who kissed me goodbye that morning without blinking, and the one who sat in that chair years ago, knowing that someday I might watch her unravel. That's when the door behind me creaked open. I turned fast. But it wasn't her. It was a man. Late 40s. Graying at the temples. Calm expression. Wearing that same navy hoodie from the attic painting. The logo, Iron Rooster Collective, barely visible. He looked at me like he already knew my name. You weren't supposed to see this, he said. I didn't answer. He took a few slow steps forward, looked past me at the projector. She never let anyone pass that door, you know. Not fully. Not even me. I clenched my jaw. Then what is this? What did you do to her? He sighed. Not defensive. Almost sad. I did what she asked. I built the vault. Set the rules. Gave her a place to bury what she couldn't carry. That doesn't explain why she's still using it. Why there's a file from 5 days ago. He paused. Because she hasn't stopped carrying it. A long silence followed. He reached into his coat and pulled out a worn flash drive. Placed it gently on the chair in the room. She never told you the full story. And she probably never will. But if you want to understand the woman you married, really understand her, you'll watch what's on this. And if you don't, then walk away now. Seal the attic. Burn the key. Lie the rest of your life never knowing. I stared at the flash drive. Why are you giving me this? He looked directly into my eyes. Because I loved her once. And I still believe she deserved to be known. Then he turned and walked out of the unit. Didn't look back. Didn't lock the gate. He just disappeared into the parking lot like a ghost in broad daylight. I didn't chase him. I just picked up the flash drive, held it in my palm, and stood there in a storage unit filled with nothing but echoes, asking myself the one question I hadn't been brave enough to say out loud. What if the version of Lacey I fell in love with never actually existed? I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. I drove for hours with the flash drive sitting like a live wire in my coat pocket. Every red light felt like a checkpoint, every gas station a chance to throw it away. But I didn't. Because the truth isn't something you walk away from once it starts breathing beside you. And that drive, whatever it contained, felt like it had lungs. I parked outside an empty library on the edge of town. The building was closed, but the public Wi-Fi still worked from the lot. I sat in the back seat with my laptop balanced on my knees and plugged in the flash drive. There were no folders, no fancy encryption, just one file. For Colin, watch alone. My hand hovered over the trackpad. Click. The video opened. Lacey sat in the attic, dressed in all black, a shawl over her shoulders like she'd come from a funeral. Her hair was pulled back tightly, no makeup, no filters. This wasn't the version of her curated for the world. This was the version no one was meant to see. And then she spoke. Hey, she said. If you're seeing this, it means I never found the words to say it out loud. Or maybe I did, and you didn't believe me. Either way, you're here now. She looked down, folded her hands. I want to tell you about the night I met Aiden. And the place I never let you in. I stopped breathing. It wasn't love, she said. Not at first. It was curiosity. He saw through people like glass. Not in a sweet, romantic way. In a dangerous, dissecting way. He'd ask questions no one dared to ask. And if you didn't answer, he'd wait. He had time. That's what made him so heavy. She blinked slowly, like she was watching her memories unfold just beyond the lens. I told him things I never told anyone. Not even you, Colin. He knew how to pull people apart and turn their trauma into art. And that's exactly what he did to me. She stood, walked off camera. A moment later, she returned with something in her hands, a sketchbook. She opened it, showing dozens of torn-out pages, each filled with frenzied scribbles, drawings, and written lines repeating again and again. If they see you cry, they'll own you. What you confess becomes theirs. Don't let him film your silence. She flipped the book shut. I stayed with him for 8 months, she said. And every month, I gave away more of myself. Until there was nothing left to give. Until I realized he didn't love me, he was cataloging me. Her eyes glistened. But she didn't cry. I left the night he said he wanted to show my face to a gallery full of strangers. Said my breakdown was the most honest thing he'd ever seen. That's when I knew. He wasn't just using me. He was exhibiting me. Like a thing. A relic. A performance. She looked directly into the camera. I built the attic as a tomb. Not for him. For me. For the version of myself that let him in. That room was supposed to be a locked casket. A space I'd never reopen. But I failed. Because I met you. She inhaled deeply. You were gentle. Safe. You never asked to go deeper. And I told myself that was a gift. But sometimes I resented it, too. Because you didn't dig. You didn't question. You let the attic stay locked, and I let myself believe that was love. She stepped closer to the camera now. I need you to know something, Colin. You never betrayed me. You just didn't challenge me. And that made me think I was healing when I was only hiding. She leaned in, inches from the lens. I'm sorry I never brought you in. I'm sorry I left you outside a door you didn't even know was there. But part of me always hoped you'd find it. Because if you did, that meant you wanted the real me. Not the polished one. The video ended. No music. No fade out. Just a jarring silence. I sat there in the car until the battery icon flashed red. The laptop shut down, but my thoughts didn't. I kept hearing that line. You didn't betray me. You just didn't challenge me. It wasn't an accusation. It was an invitation. But to what? That night, I drove home, parked in the driveway, stared at the porch light she'd left on for me, like always. She was already asleep when I walked in, or pretending to be. Her side of the bed didn't stir. I lay awake until dawn, trying to decide what kind of man I wanted to be now. Because if I stepped fully into that attic, emotionally, not just physically, I'd never come back the same. I didn't just open her past. I'd invited it into our present. And the scariest part wasn't what I'd seen. It was what I hadn't seen yet. The next morning, I made coffee the way I always do. 2 sugars, no cream. Lacey was already in the kitchen, hair in a messy bun, wearing one of my old sweatshirts. She looked at me for a long second, almost like she was waiting for something. A question, a confrontation, a sign that I'd been in the attic again. I handed her a cup. I watched it, I said quietly. She didn't ask which part. She just nodded and looked down. There was no anger in the room. No panic. Just a kind of stillness, like two people standing at the edge of a canyon, both knowing they'd have to climb across or walk away. I should have told you everything from the start, she said. You weren't ready, I replied. Maybe I wasn't either. She looked up then. I searching mine. So what now? I paused. Thought about it. We stop pretending we know each other, I said, and start actually learning. That's when she smiled. Not the polite one. Not the mask. But the quiet, surprised kind. Like she didn't expect that answer, but was relieved to hear it. Over the next few weeks, we changed. Not in some grand, dramatic way, but in small, deliberate ways. We opened the attic together one morning, sat on the floor, and went through the old files, letters, and sketches. She told me what each one meant, not like a guide explaining exhibits, but like someone finally unpacking their grief aloud. We found things she didn't even remember saving, photos from her early 20s, poetry written during nights she couldn't sleep, an old thumb drive with a video she filmed of her and Aiden laughing in a diner. She deleted that one without hesitation. One night, I asked her if she wanted to take down the painting, the one of his face in flames. She shook her head. No, it's not him I see anymore when I look at it. It's the girl I used to be, and the part of her that finally set the fire. Eventually, the studio changed. She started painting again, real canvases this time. Color returned to that room. Light, music, laughter, and me. I wasn't outside the door anymore. I was in the room, fully, not as a guest, as her partner. We built new rules together. No more locked doors. No more things left unsaid. Some days were hard. Healing never happens in a straight line, but we kept showing up. For each other. For ourselves. One evening, months later, I found the brass key in a drawer. The one with the heart-shaped notch. I held it in my palm and asked her, "Do you want to keep it?" She looked at me and said, "No, that was the key to a door I never want to lock again." So I threw it away. Not because it didn't matter, but because it finally didn't own us anymore. And that's how I knew we'd made it through. Not by unlocking a room, but by unlocking each other, one truth at a time.